be exploring the unit circle and sine and cosine graphs. All right, you're probably used to drawing the unit circle here. Basically, what's happening in this animation is that these points are being plotted around the unit circle, and as they're being plotted, what's being graphed? Two different ways. By the way, the cosine wave is your blue wave. The sine wave is your red wave. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to graph these on our own. So let's go back to R. There we go. Right now you have this picture right now, and we are going to graph our own unit circle. So we're going to go down here, and what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to draw a circle. We are going to label certain things in the unit circle. We're going to start right here at this point, 1, 0. This point right here, we'll call it 0, 1. This is if the unit circle right here is at 0, 0. Okay? That's what you're setting the course. So that's 0, 0. So our pair is negative 1, 0. And we have 0, negative 1. Now, I want you guys to label right here at 1, 0. If we started here, this is our initial side, we'd be at 0 pi. If we go all the way around the circle, we're at 2 pi. At 0 pi, we're at 0 degrees. If we wanted to change the 2 degrees. At 2 pi, we're at 360. How many degrees are we right here? From here to right there, how many degrees? 90. All right, so basically we're at pi over 2, which is equal to 90 degrees. What's halfway around the circle? We're at 180 degrees, but that would be at pi. Right here we'd be at 270 degrees, but that's at 3 pi over 2. Okay? So 3 pi over 2, pi over 2, pi, all of those. Those are your, that's theta in what? That's theta when it's in what mode? Radians mode, okay? So we're going to be working specifically in radians mode. So what I want you guys to do right now is I want you guys to write y equals the sine of x. And I want you to make an x and a y table. For x, we're going to plug in 0 pi. We're going to plug in pi over 2. We're going to plug in pi. We're going to plug in 3 pi over 2. And finally, we're going to plug in 2 pi for x. And x represents everybody. X represents our theta, our value of the theta. So go and write your table for sine, and we'll figure out what are the y values when these are our x values. All right. Hopefully you remember that sine of theta is your y value in comparison to your r value. Okay? And what is our radius in the unit circle? Right? Our radius is just equal to a 1. These ordered pairs represent what? Your x value and your y value. So at 0 pi, what is our y value over our r value at 0 pi? Right here. What's our y value? 0. What's our r value? 1. What's 0 over 1 equal to? 0. Okay? What about at pi over 2? At pi over 2, what's our y value over our r value at pi over 2? 1 over 1. 1 over 1. So we're at 1. Okay? What about at pi? What's our y value over our r value at pi? 0 over? No, 0 over 1. Just get back at a 0. So now let's look at 3 pi over 2. What's the y value over the r value at 3 pi over 2? Negative 1 over 1, which is at a negative 1. And finally at 2 pi, where are we back at? 0 over 1, which is at a 0. So look at your y value. What do you start at with the sine wave? You start at what? Your y value starts at 0, then it goes up to a 1, then back to a 0, then a negative 1, then a 0. So right here, what we're going to do is we're using the concept of the unit circle to graph the sine wave. So what we're going to do in the graphing calculator, do with me, I hope it makes sense. Go to your graphing calculator. I want you to go to the window. Go to the window settings in your graphing calculator. All right? We are going to start at 0 pi, everybody. That's going to be our x minimum. Now 0 pi is just 0. But then where it says x maximum, I want you to type in 2 pi. That's going to be our x maximum. Now the calculator will convert that to a decimal. For your x scale, every single tick mark on the x scale, I want it to be at pi divided by 2. So every single increment that's going up on the x scale, I want it to be at pi over 2. For your y minimum, just put a -2, and your y maximum 2, and let's leave the y scale at 1. Okay? Now, in the graph right here, you hit graph. This is what you should see. Now, if you don't see grid lines on your graph, then what you need to do is go to second zoom. You have what? So go to grid line, you can hit grid line, and that'll give you grid. Now, for y equals, right here where it has y equals, what we're going to do is I want you to type in y equals the sine of x. Now, it's going to be very important that before you hit the graph button, it's going to be very important that your mode button, it better be in radians, because all the theta, right, all the angle measures, what were we putting them in? We're putting them in radian mode, not degree mode. Now hit graph. Let's look at our graph. So as we talk about this, we're going to talk about where are we on the graph. Right here, everybody. We are at 0 pi. Right here, we are at pi over 2. Right here, we're at pi. Right here, we're at 3 pi over 2. And where do we end up? 2 pi. This is the period of the sine function. The period is 2 pi. You have one whole sine wave that happens within a period of 2 pi. So notice, right up here, Caden, at pi over 2, what's our y value? What's our y value right here? 1, right? What's our y value right here? 0, right? What's our y value right here? -1. And then it goes back to 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our table. We started at what? Our y value started at 0, then it went up to a 1, then back to a 0, then down to a -1, and then back up to 0. So we go back to our table. There we go. 0, 1, 0, -1, 0. At what increments? All increments of going up by pi over 2. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the cosine method. All right, so what I want you to do, I'm going to do this one in red. I'm going to put y equals the cosine of x. Remember, the cosine of theta is equal to your x value over your r value. It's going to be all the same thing except we're using cosine, not sine. Okay, so make sure in your table we're going to use the same values for theta, with the same values for x. So right here I want you to write 0 pi, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. But this time, everybody, we're going to compare x over r, not y over r. All right? Now I realize you can't see the unit circle, because I have to slide over to make this table, so let's kind of do it one by one. All right, now let's look here. At 0 pi, okay, let's look at our x value over our r value. What's our x value? 1. What's our r value? 1. So right here, what I'd like you to put is 1 over 1. So we're going to be at a 1. Now, let's look at pi over 2. What's our x value at pi over 2? 0. So this is going to be 0 over 1, which we're at a 0. What about at pi? What's our x value at pi? -1. So we can go over here, I know we're going back and forth quicker. Negative 1 over 1, so now we're down to a... Oh, that's right. This one will be at 0 over 1. That's 0. And last but not least, at 2 pi, where are we at? Let's check. Ready? At 2 pi, we're back at a 1 over 1. We're back at a 1 over 1, which equals 1. So at cosine, we don't start at 0. Where does our y value start at cosine?
At
1. Then it goes down to 0, then negative 1, 0, then 1. Alright, so let's go to our graphic calculator. Watch. Okay, y equals, go down to where you have the red, and type in the cosine of x. And hit graph. So let's look. Right here, where are we at? Right here, everybody. We're at 1 when your x value is at 0 pi. When your x value is at pi over 2, where are you at? You're at a 0. When your x value is at a pi, where are you down to? We're down to a... Alright. Okay, by the way, what's our x value right here? Our x value. 3 pi over 2. That's 3 pi over 2. Where are we right here? That's at 2 pi. So at 3 pi over 2, we're at a 0, but back up at 2 pi, we're at a 1. So I want to make sure you understand. This is your y equals the cosine of x. This right here is y equals the sine of x. Okay? So I want you guys right now, look at problem number 1. What does problem number 1 state? Adam? Cosine pi, right? What is the cosine at pi? So let's look at our cosine one. Ready? There's pi. Cosine. Where are we at? So your cosine of pi is equal to a negative 1. Let's look at problem number 2. We're going to look at it. Ready? Problem number 2. What does it ask us for? Sine of what? Sine of 3 pi over 2. So we're going to go to 3 pi over 2. We're going to look at sine wave. Where are we at? At 3 pi over 2 in the sine wave. Negative 1. Wow, this is easy. Let's look at number 3. What does number 3 ask for? Oh, of what? Sine. We're looking at sine of what? Negative 7 pi over... Wait a second. We don't have negative 7 pi over 2.
But you can keep making after graph.
Exactly. You can keep extending the graph if you wanted to. We got to go left, don't we? Okay? So by the way, how about this? What if we did this? What if I changed my window? What if I put my x minimum at negative 7 pi divided by 2? What if I did that? Let's hit the graph button. Look at the graph button. Here we go. Kind of changed our graph. Now, by the way, what did I say the blue one was? No, silly. That's the sine of x, right? All right. What's this one? This one was the cosine of x. So right here, everybody, this is at negative 7 pi over 2. So look at your sine wave. Where are you at negative 7?
You're in 0. The red?
No. What is the sine of negative 7 pi? You're at 1. Very good. So the sine of negative 7 pi over 2 is at a what? Is at a 1. And that's your answer for number 3.
Okay.
And that's how you evaluate it. Okay?